Tonight, the Nolan Wells investigation into the death of a shining star, Nolan Wells, has an altercation witness emerged. A witness that claims she saw an altercation at Horn Island.
And some more mysterious letters that I'm reading to you. Again, I don't know if these are real, but I think it's important to share them. After others were forced to leave, the last few were trying to help, but they made them leave. Nolan had already taken his last gasps and was gargling blood. His last words were, "No, please, guys, I love you." Key notes: when Nolan yelled, that's when Evan's mom came down. Nolan's body was still warm when they started moving it to be stored. Nolan survived most of the attack. Ultimately, murder was intentional. He yelled, but barely. He saw his moments and memories flash, but his last memory was with his parents after winning a game, and he was happy and he was ready for the next season. Maybe memories was from his last game of his first year of college. Again, I don't know how this letter could possibly know what his last memory was, so again, we have to take it with a grain of salt. Nolan wanted nothing more than to have peace, even when it wasn't always reciprocated in certain instances. Wyatt was a primary aggressor, encouraging booze and drugs and hyping the others up to single out Nolan. Nolan had some sort of fun, but they left earlier than planned due to the boat having some sort of jerk or throttle issue happening while on the island. The boys planned to leave Nolan. He left the girl. He did spend a little time with her there. Wyatt and Warren were jealous, taunting that they would leave him, and made him swim not too far to the boat. They wanted him to swim through the current, dared him to, and Nolan waited for something current to pass and then swam to the boat approximately at 3:45 p.m. Around 4:30, they had already started to head back, took a few convincing photos that Nolan was failure to it, but did anyways. Again, this is very hard to read. I can't confirm any of this, guys. This is all strong on the ledge of allegedly, but again, these letters are out there, so I thought it was important to read it. Again, some of this writing looks like it could be a female because they've hearted a few things. I just want to put this out there. I have forwarded all these letters to Ben Crump and his attorneys just in case there is anything real to this. But again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. This is just, in my opinion, something that is interesting to share. Secret Service Sam out, Samson for president.
Somehow, some way, and a lot of you guys probably already suspect this, somehow, some way, Officer Tatum is involved somewhere in this equation, in which you will find out at some point in this video.
I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. What I saw has stayed with me, and I believe it's important information. I have provided or intend to provide my account to the appropriate investigators because Nolan's family deserves the truth. Out of respect for the ongoing investigation, I won't speculate beyond what I personally observed. While I was on the boat near the area, I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells and several other individuals. I saw what appeared to be an argument that escalated after there was a dispute involving Nolan's phone. I heard Nolan yelling for his phone to be returned. The argument continued after the group reached shore, and I observed a physical fight involving Nolan and multiple people. I also observed a young woman telling them to stop. At that point, I left the area because the situation had appeared to be getting worse. I did not remain long enough to witness what happened afterward. Everything beyond what I personally observed would be speculation, so I cannot honestly say what occurred after I left. Then she said she messaged one of the individuals that she saw, "Hey, I just want to say I was a passenger on another boat and I saw the argument between you guys and will go to the police with this information. I also have video footage. My husband doesn't show much, but it shows the argument that was taken and how you guys were upset at Nolan."
There is a rule in every investigation that outlasts the headlines. What a person says today has to survive what they said yesterday. For weeks, one name kept surfacing in the Nolan Wells case without ever quite being explained. That changed the moment two statements, 3 weeks apart, were played back to back, and they did not match. This is what happened.
If they ever turned over the videos that they have to the police, I don't know if they ever gave a statement to the police, but that post is being read directly from their TikTok by Secret Service in. And the reason why we don't know if they've ever turned over information, if they ever spoke to the police, if the police have ever followed up on this, because the DA and the prosecutors don't speak to you unless you are an attorney for one of the boys. Okay? All right. Even the family can't get information from out these people, but somehow Bart attorney had all the information in regards to Nolan Wells' autopsy before the parents had it and Chris Cuomo had it. Like ain't that odd? These information is supposed to be secret and sealed, but somehow these folks have all the information before anybody else do, but they quote unquote ain't speaking, right? Cool. So we don't know. But what I can say is be very careful, okay, about somebody's initial reaction to this. If somebody's initial reaction to this is what you're about to hear, they're very sus, right? They are very, very sketchy, okay? Now, after you hear this, there's another factor that gets really deeper. Officer Tatum and his reaction to this tells me everything I need to know about this. Tatum's reaction to this should tell us everything we need to know about this, but we'll get there towards the end of this video.
Formerly in the public defender's office, they try a ton of cases. Philip, first of all, has she turned it into police? She said she was. If she hasn't, I give her no credibility at all. Look, I want this to be true. Why? Because I want the video. I want to see the timestamp on the video. I want to see, was he still on Horn Island at 4:30 when his acquaintances on the Triton boat left? I want that video. And if she hasn't brought this forward to LE, law enforcement, then it means nothing to me. I mean, if I know a young man turns up dead in the water, and I know there's a controversy surrounding this, I mean, we know she knows that because she's gone online and posted it, then why not hand it over to police?
Agreed. And it should go to the grand jury for part of their investigation. But I got to tell you, if I were cross-examining her, should this even go to trial, the first question I'd ask her on that 4th of July, what she had been drinking. Before that video got activated, everybody would want to
put him up.
Drinking and smoking. You know how many people were partying?
Okay, man. Have you lost your mind?
When I tell y'all we're in this fight by ourselves, we're in this fight by ourselves, bruh. None of these people want to see justice. None of them. When it comes to this situation, in this case specifically this case, these people act like they don't have common sense. These people all of a sudden lose all rationality. They lose all common sense. This man, right, who is an actual attorney, is hearing a woman say, yo, I seen Nolan Wells have an altercation with somebody shortly before his disappearance. And he says, well, was she drunk? Was she drinking? Excuse me? How? What? Now, shout out to Nancy Grace, because Nancy Grace she shut this conversation down shortly after this. Like, she shut this conversation down. She said, I'm good, bro. Like, you straight, like, you could go. And she redirected her focus to Tatum. Now, what Tatum had to say about this was the most interesting. What Tatum had to say about this left me floored, left my mouth, my jaw, everything on the floor. I couldn't believe what I was hearing Tatum say.
Brandon Tatum is joining us. So after all that, all you have to say is, was she drinking? That's your takeaway from that? Joining me is Brandon Tatum, former police officer, Tucson, now star of The Officer Tatum on YouTube, who famously has interviewed the acquaintances who all say they had nothing to do with it. Let's just put that out there. He's interviewed them extensively. I want to talk about not what you want to talk about, Brandon Tatum, which is they had nothing to do with this, because I met them and I believe them. So noted. Can we talk about a potential witness to an altercation? And she seems to suggest it was over Katie. Why? Don't know what the altercation was. Maybe it was, hey, leave her alone and get on the boat, or leave her alone, she's my girlfriend, or it could be anything. But if there is a witness placing Nolan seemingly in the water, I can't tell that, but having an argument with another person, a partier at Horn Island, that is significant. It could prove or disprove your friend's timeline.
Well, Nancy, I think that it's a big obstacle to climb here because I've never heard of this altercation whatsoever. No.
Tatum, what? Tatum, hell ain't hot enough for you, bro. Hell ain't hot enough for you, bro. You've never heard about this altercation before, Tatum? You mean wait, hold on, Tatum. No, I didn't hear that right. Play that. Nah. He didn't say that.
Your friend's timeline.
Well, Nancy, I think that it's a big obstacle to climb here because I've never heard of this altercation whatsoever. Nobody that I've talked to have alluded that this altercation was real.
These people lie so much they can't even keep up with their own lies anymore. They tell so many lies they can't keep up anymore. But I fear this lie that Tatum is currently telling is the most nefarious lie of them all. I fear there's some truth to what we just heard. And Tatum is trying to cover up for it. And here's why. You see, Tatum told Nancy Grace after he heard the story that he never heard about this altercation. Nobody he had any contact with has ever mentioned this altercation before. But this was Tatum approximately 3 weeks ago on his channel talking about this very same altercation. Isn't this you, Tatum?
I received a DM from someone DMing another person. Now, I'm trying to leave these names out because I want to not mess this investigation up. I think law enforcement already have this. That alluded to the fact that, and I messaged this person because I want to talk directly to the person that I saw the DM from. And we haven't talked to this person yet. But the person said in the DM to another kid that is associated, not any of the kids that I interviewed to talk to, but that could be associated to some degree, that knew Nolan, that this person wrote a message saying, me and my husband saw you arguing with Nolan, and to the effect of you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Now, the person did not say they saw a physical altercation. The person did not say what time they saw Nolan and this other person getting into an argument. Now, this is after Warren, their boat left. This may be somewhere around a little bit before 6. What I'm thinking at this point, with all that has been said, is that somebody knows exactly what happened to Nolan, or they saw him right before he died. I am not convinced that Nolan was just out there and drowned.
Tatum was so convinced by that DM that Nolan had an altercation back and forth with somebody that he even went out on a limb to say he believed that somebody knows what happened to Nolan, somebody watched Nolan die, and he don't believe that Nolan drowned. Now, all of a sudden, after Tatum became buddies with the boys' lawyers, after the boy lawyers started to promote Tatum's bourbon and his liquor in all of their interviews, after they essentially got a partnership with Tatum, now all of a sudden, Tatum don't remember ever hearing about this altercation, but that ain't the only lie Tatum got caught in. No. In the last 24 hours, it got exposed. Damn near all of Officer Tatum, quote unquote, sources were all lies. He either made it up himself or he's lying about everything he once knew because he realized those things now implicate his friends and his homies. Allegedly, I don't know, okay? So that man just explained the exact altercation that person is describing. Nancy Grace asked him about the same altercation he already talked about 3 weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, he has no idea what's going on. He never heard of it. This man needs to be investigated, bro. Tatum needs to be investigated. They need to bring Tatum to the altar, bro. Because you can't keep getting away with this.
And also Katie, whom I saw her text messages, she didn't even say this altercation occurred. What I will say is that if I was an investigator in this investigation, I want to hear that. I want to be able to compare that information to other things that we may have or other witness statements. But I don't think it's significant because it doesn't show if Nolan Wells was actually killed in that altercation. She's claiming that there was an altercation between him arguing with somebody else. There was a potential fight, but that doesn't get me to how did he drown? How did he get in the water? And how did he not recover and come home to his family? So I would take that into consideration. I would compare that to the other interviews that I've done, but I don't think it's significant whatsoever. However, I would be incredibly skeptical because there's no other statements that I've heard from anybody that comes even close to an altercation with Nolan Wells and others over a girl.
Number one, he's dead shortly after an alleged altercation with another male. We think over a woman. See, in my world, I put together both circumstantial and direct evidence. Direct evidence would be, for instance, DNA or a fingerprint. Circumstantial evidence is the timing of the alleged altercation and his death. Right?
Nancy,
so it's hard for me to believe that there's some kind of altercation on Horn Island just before he dies. And they were not connected. That's hard for me to believe that.
Well, Nancy, she's not saying he lost the fight. She's not saying that he got beat up. If you look at the autopsy, there's no clear signs of blunt force trauma to his face or any of the vital areas that could kill him. So it doesn't appear that there's any indication that he lost a fight, that there was enough trauma in this particular.
You see how Tatum has went from, do you see how Tatum has went from, hey, I was told this and I'll be real, man. Hey, bro, like they're credible. And you know, listen, man, I now believe, I don't think he just drowned. I think somebody watched him die. Then shouldn't you still have that exact same thing? It's only been 3 weeks. Shouldn't you still think the exact same thing? Shouldn't you still believe?
What I was told, and you guys, please take in consideration that it's reliable sources. However, the only way to prove the truth in this is if I see it with my own eyes, if the law enforcement have the investigation of this, and also when the toxicology results come out. But people are messaging me and telling me that there is heavy drinking and there's cocaine involved. And there's a particular person whom I know this person's name. I'm not going to disclose it. I'm going to go to the police first, and then I will disclose it if it doesn't interfere in the investigation. But this person allegedly was offering people cocaine, and someone close to Nolan, one of his friends, told me that this person was offered cocaine and rejected it from this person. And I was also told, and this person told me that it's over 100% chance that Nolan was using cocaine during this period of time. This person said it was 150% sure that when the toxicology comes back, that Nolan will have cocaine in his system. Now,
Language between what has Tatum ever said about this case that's the truth?
I know they're saying they're done with the autopsy and that it's complete, which means the gross findings in the autopsy room, the tox, the histology, that means that that autopsy report is complete. They just hadn't released their findings yet.
And speaking of that, Joe Scott Morgan, I've heard the same, that the autopsy is complete.
Yeah.
There are reports that there is no cocaine in Nolan's system. That's uncorroborated reports,
Okay.
but a good source. No cocaine in the system.
Yep.
Joe Scott, when the body has been in the elements, such as the water, for that long, how can I confirm if he had been drinking or not?
Oh, you can still pull a BA, blood alcohol, or blood ethanol level, as it's referred to. And again, Nancy, we're not talking about someone that has been down for weeks and weeks.
And what it may mean for a case that still has more questions than answers. Nolan Wells was 20 years old when he went missing from Horn Island. His body was recovered days later. Since then, the case has moved through cycles of silence and sudden information, sealed autopsy findings, an independent timeline review, and a rotating cast of witnesses whose accounts have not always lined up. Sit with that for a moment. A young man is gone, and the people closest to the events on that island have spent months describing that night in fragments, some of which contradict each other outright. One of those fragments involves a woman who says she was on a nearby boat with her husband. According to her own account, posted publicly before her page was set to private, she witnessed an altercation involving Nolan and several other individuals. She described an argument that appeared to escalate after a dispute over a phone, continuing after the group reached shore. She says she saw a physical confrontation and a young woman attempting to intervene. She has said she left the area before it resolved, and that everything beyond what she personally observed would be speculation on her part. That is an important distinction, and one this video is going to hold on to throughout. The difference between what someone witnessed directly and everything that gets built on top of it afterward. Return to the facts as they stand. A woman claims to have witnessed an altercation. She claims to have contacted one of the individuals involved and stated she had footage. What is not confirmed is whether that footage, or any formal statement, was ever provided to investigators. That single unanswered question is the difference between a lead and a rumor, and right now, it sits in the unconfirmed column. Why does that matter? Because the family of Nolan Wells has spent months being told, by their own account, that answers are close, only to watch each new claim dissolve into the same uncertainty. Every unverified account that circulates without follow-through adds another layer between them and the truth they're owed. Now to the contradiction that brought this story back into the spotlight. 3 weeks before a televised interview, a familiar figure in this case, a former police officer turned online commentator who has interviewed several of the young men present that night, described this same altercation to his own audience. In that earlier account, he said he had received a message describing an argument involving Nolan, one serious enough that he told viewers he no longer believed Nolan had simply drowned. He said, in his own words, that he believed somebody had watched Nolan die. Pause on that. Those are not small claims. That is a public figure telling his audience, on the record, that he suspected a witness to the final moments of Nolan Wells' life. 3 weeks later, on a nationally broadcast interview, he was asked directly about an altercation involving Nolan. His answer, that he had never heard of it, that nobody he had spoken with had ever alluded to it being real. 2 statements, same commentator, same case, 3 weeks apart. One describes the altercation in detail and draws a conclusion from it. The other denies ever hearing of it. Both cannot be accurate. This is where a documentary has to be careful, and where we're going to stay careful. We are not accusing this individual of lying about the underlying facts of Nolan's death. That is not something this video can determine. What can be stated, because it exists on video from his own channel, is that his 2 public accounts of the same event conflict with each other. That is a fact about his statements, not a verdict about the case. Why that distinction matters? In an investigation this contested, the reliability of the people shaping public opinion becomes part of the story. When someone positions themselves as a source of information, viewers and possibly investigators are relying on the consistency of what they say. A contradiction like this one doesn't prove what happened to Nolan Wells. It does raise a legitimate question about how much weight his other claims should carry. That question gets sharper with the next thread. The same commentator previously told viewers he had a reliable source claiming Nolan had used cocaine in the hours before his death, a source he described, in his words, as accurate 150% of the time. According to later reporting on the toxicology findings, no cocaine was detected in Nolan's system. If that reporting holds, it means a source the commentator called effectively infallible was wrong about a specific, testable claim. Again, this does not resolve anything about how Nolan died, but it adds a second data point to the same pattern. Confident claims, made publicly, that did not hold up when checked against the record. Here is why a documentary handling an active, unresolved case has to keep drawing this line. It would be easy to take two contradictions and build a theory out of them, to suggest cover-up, or complicity, or knowledge of what happened that night. That is exactly the kind of leap this channel does not make. What we can responsibly say is this: the public record now shows inconsistent statements from someone whose commentary has shaped how thousands of people understand this case. What we cannot say is what that inconsistency means. That determination belongs to investigators, not to commentary, including this one. There is a separate thread that has circulated alongside these developments. Letters, unsigned and unverifiable, purporting to describe Nolan's final moments in detail. Out of respect for accuracy, and for the family, this video is not going to repeat their contents. Anything that cannot be traced to a verified source does not belong in the same sentence as confirmed reporting, no matter how widely it has been shared. If a claim cannot be attributed, it does not get treated as fact here, and that standard does not change no matter how compelling the material looks. What can be said clearly is this: a witness account exists, unconfirmed as formally reported. A public commentator's own statements about that account do not align with each other 3 weeks apart. A separate claim from that same commentator about drug use did not match the toxicology findings as reported. None of that tells us what happened to Nolan Wells. All of it tells us that the information ecosystem around this case needs to be read carefully, and that includes everything discussed in this video. The family of Nolan Wells is still waiting. An independent timeline review has already identified what investigators called a material gap in the account given by those present that night. A state autopsy has reportedly moved toward grand jury review. Those are the threads that will ultimately answer the only question that matters here, not who said what on which channel, but what actually happened on Horn Island. If this case matters to you, subscribe and stay with this channel, because the next update, covering what the grand jury review turns up, will be here first, and it will hold to the same standard this one did: verified facts, clearly marked uncertainty, and no name attached to an accusation it hasn't earned. Nolan Wells was 20 years old. He does not get to correct the record himself. That responsibility falls to everyone reporting on his case, including this channel, to get it right, even when getting it right is slower and less dramatic than getting it first. We'll be back with the next development. Until then, take care of each other.